I had some technical difficulties, which of course happens when you're at a conference on technology.
Of course, but
yeah. Okay, so hi everyone, thank you for being here and thank you for having me. My presentation is on a bit of a different subject than everything I've heard this far. And this is also an opportunity to thank you all for your presentations, which were very interesting for me to hear and to learn from. So I will be speaking about intellectual property. As I said before, I'm a lawyer, and this is a job that might soon be obsolete according to Jacob's presentation, but nevertheless, this is my occupation still. And I will be speaking about whether registering AI-generated patents can lead to a revolution in distributive justice. And I'll start with a brief introduction of the Artificial Inventor Project, just in case someone is not familiar with it. So the Artificial Inventor Project is actually a series of legal test cases seeking to protect AI-generated inventions with the registration of patents. So patents are usually registered for an invention of a human inventor. And here there was an AI system developed by Steven Thaler. This AI system is called Dabus, and it invented on its own, with no human intervention, several inventions. One of them, as far as I understand, is, for example, a shape-changing drink container. And so Steven Thaler and his associates took this invention and filed many patent applications in many countries around the world to try to be granted patents for this invention. And the uniqueness of this case is that we actually don't have a human inventor. It's an AI inventor exclusively. And the current state of play of this project is that, well, states don't really play along with that. So we have states denying such protection or such registration. And in this front, we have states like the US, the UK, Australia, Germany, Israel, and other states. Whereas I will state that some of these countries denied the registration on technical basis, which can be further discussed in the Q&As. And on the other hand, we have states granting such protection or registration, which are, well, to this date, only South Africa. And I will also state that South Africa does not undertake substantive examination of patents. That means that the patent office in South Africa will not look into a patent to see whether it's novel or whether it has an inventive step. And this is different to most other countries around the world, which do undertake this examination. Nevertheless, looking at this so-called map, I think what I thought was that we can see an opportunity emerges from this state of play, from these differences between the states. Mainly because, as you can see, on one hand, we have many developed countries that do not register such patents. And on the other hand, we have one developing country that does register them. And I will explain why I think, in my opinion, this could be an opportunity. So I thought about that from the perspective of international distributive justice and patents. And when we talk about distributive justice and patents, we often speak about inequality or inequity in this international distribution of justice. And this is mainly because of two reasons or two causes. And I call them the target cause and the price cause. So first, the target cause. So we know that most R&D companies are based in developed world countries. They target developed world or developed countries' problems. They rarely look at developing world's problems. And this is because developed world countries are more affluent, they have more to gain there, and also because they are based in these countries. So this is one cause for inequality. Other cause for inequality is the price. And this is a sort of a twofold problem. So first, because inventions, when they are granted a patent, they become a monopoly. Then the price is a monopolistic price. And for developing world countries, this is a price that they may not be able to pay, and often they are not able to pay it. The other side of this problem is more of maybe a kind of an explanation to the problem, is that R&D companies will be concerned about selling their products, their patented products, in developing world countries at an affordable price in developing countries, because they are afraid that these products will make their way back into circulation in developed world countries. So in developed world countries, they are charging a monopolistic price, which is very high, unaffordable for developing world countries. And if they will start to sell these products for an affordable price in developing world countries, then the price will be so low that in developed countries, it can recirculate back for a much lower price, and they will lose their revenues. And the traditional view of this matter is that because of how these two parts of or areas of the world, so to speak, have developed, the developing countries and developed countries, the view is that developed countries have obligations towards developing countries to rectify inequality and to create international distributive justice. And when I thought about this map or these two columns that I showed before, I thought, well, what if developing countries could have achieved that on their own? What if by making the policy decision of registering AI-generated patents, while other countries do not register them, developing world countries can actually achieve distributive justice, international distributive justice themselves. And I will explain why I think this could happen. So I said before that there are two causes for inequality. So first was the target and the other was price. So let's start with the target. So here are a few notions about the patent system. So we know that the patent system is territorial. That means that inventions or patents are only protected in the territory where they are registered. If a patent is registered in South Africa and it is not registered in the United States, then it is only protected in South Africa and not in the United States, and vice versa. We also know that the patent system is an incentive-based system. So the system is designed to incentivize inventors to invent useful inventions for the benefit of the public good by granting them a property right, which is the patent, which grants them a monopoly over their invention, so they can, among other things, be compensated for the investments that they made in developing these inventions. And another thing that we know, or we are being told, is that the cost of AI generated inventions is significantly lower than the cost of human-generated inventions. So they're supposed to be very cheap to develop and maybe also to produce. And so taking all of these all of these components together, we can see that developing countries have a unique opportunity of shifting the target cause to their benefit by simply allowing for the registration of such AI-generated inventions, while most of the rest of the world does not. Because if we implement here economic considerations, then we would assume that an AI system owner that wants to invent something will be incentivized to invent something that will be protected in the part of the world where they can sell it, because otherwise they cannot make any revenue from it, because it will just not be protected. And I think that in this way, developing world countries can actually affect, by means of their national policy of registration of these patents, the allocation, I called it the allocation of solutions, or the redistribution of AI inventive resources. So they can redirect these resources to actually target their own problems and to solve their own problems. And I will say that when I started thinking about this paper, I had in mind the realm of public health. But as I moved forward with this project, I thought that the realm of public health may have other issues, specifically concerning the costs of manufacturing of solutions, because unlike other inventions with the realm of public health, we know that even after an invention is being made, even if it was very cheap to produce such invention, still we have a cost of testing, for example, of drugs or vaccines. We have costs of receiving approvals to market such medicine, and so on. So this might overcome the benefits in the low cost of the AI-generated invention. But still, we can think of other realms in which this theory should presumably work. So for example, think about famine, or the lack of clean water, or other developing countries specific problems that can be resolved by AI-generated inventions. So this was the first cause for inequality. And now the second cause for inequality, which is the price, the high price of monopolistic products and sell them. So here I think one of two things can happen. First, we might be witnessing an increase in the prices, which will not benefit global distribution of justice, of course. And this is for two reasons. So first one is the reason that the AI generated invention would like to be compensated for the investment that they made in this invention, however low these investments were. And because they only have very specific and limited jurisdictions in which their patent or their invention will be protected, because most jurisdictions will just not protect such inventions, then it might incentivize AI system owners to increase the price of each and every, the price per unit, and actually make it more difficult for developing countries to purchase such products. And the other reason for a possible increasement in the price is strategic. So AI system owners may just register their inventions, their AI-generated inventions in developing countries, not because they seek to manufacture or produce or sell their inventions in developing countries, but simply as a strategy to maybe further utilize this registration or protection in other manners, or to even create a precedent to show, or a global norm that such inventions can be actually registered as patents. And if they will do that, then we might be looking at a situation in which developing countries register either patents that will not be sold in their territory, or patents that do not target their problems, so they don't really benefit from them. And nevertheless, they have to pay a monopolistic price to purchase such products, whereas everywhere else in the world, these products are free to use because they are not protected by intellectual property rights. And so this might make the problem of distributive justice more severe. But what I think is that we can also be looking at a different situation in which the prices, the monopolistic prices of these products will decrease. And this is for the exact two same reasons. So first, compensation. So we know that these inventions will only be registered in very specific parts of the world. And this might lead AI system owners to actually decrease the price and make it affordable for developing countries if these are the only countries that actually register and protect such products. So this may cause a decrease in the price. The second cause for it is strategic. So I said before that one of the reasons to sell the products in developing countries for a high price is the concern of the recirculation of them back to the developed world countries. But here we don't have this problem because developed countries don't even register these products or these inventions. They don't protect them. They cannot be sold there for a monopolistic price. This problem is eliminated. And the patent owner, the AI-generated patent owner, can sell their products for an affordable price, still monopolistic, yes, but affordable in developing countries without being concerned that its global revenue will decrease. Okay, so I think that if we take all of this together, what we might be seeing here is actually a novel playing field that shatters traditional distinctions and paradigms. So before I said that the traditional view is that developed countries have an obligation toward developing countries to rectify inequality. But what we see here is that developing countries might be able to break free of this distinction and actually influence global inequality and promote distributive justice single-handedly by changing their own national policy with regard to the registration of AI-generated patents. And they can, I called it allocation of solutions, they can actually promote the allocation of solutions or the redirection of AI inventive resources to focus on their own problems and have them sold to them for a much more affordable price. But what if this will not be the case? And after all that I said, we will still be looking at the same playing field. So we have many developed countries that don't register AI-generated products or inventions, and we have developing countries that do register them. What if after everything that we've looked through, still we will see R&D companies continue to target the problems of the developed world? I think it will also be interesting because what we have here is kind of a natural experiment. So we just have to sit back and look at what happens in the market. And if we indeed see that R&D companies continue to target developed world countries' problems, where they can't even be granted patents or monopoly or rights for their invention to solve these problems, then we might have to ask ourselves some serious questions about the very core of the patent system. Does the incentive system really works? Does granting monopoly to an inventor actually incentivize them to invent? Does the patent system as a whole truly works? So I think that any way that this will play out, it will provide an interesting perspective on the global patent system. So this was my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Apologies. I got issues with my technical thing on this side. It's how it goes, right? So let's open it up to questions. Lucas, I saw your hand up right out of the gate, so go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Very interesting, well researched. I was wondering, I mean, the reason that industrial nations don't patent those inventions, the way you've described, I mean, I haven't been looking into it, right? Based on your research, it's not that they don't think it's a good idea, apparently, but because it doesn't really work, right? So it only works, if I understood you correctly, if you don't look into things too much, right, or too deeply, because that's what the way you characterize the only country that does grant us patents, right?
So from the way I understand it, in many countries, this is a very new question. Courts and well, it starts usually with the patent offices. They haven't stumbled upon such questions before. There is a famous case of the monkey selfie, but I don't know if you know that, but if you know that case, but it refers to copyright. And many countries actually, when patent offices and courts come to look at the legislative acts themselves, they find that the legislative acts require a human inventor. And that is why it cannot be registered. I think that some jurisdictions, even when they look at the patent itself, they said, yeah, it's new, it could have been registered, but because you don't have a human inventor, you cannot do that. In South Africa, I'm less familiar with the laws themselves, but yeah, it is my understanding that they only undertake formal examination and not substantive, and it is therefore easier, so to speak, to register this patent. What I thought about that even if this is the situation, we can envisage a world in which developing world countries do register such patents and developed world countries do not, and that's what prompted me to undertake this research.
But I do understand, but there must be then a reason why development countries should do what other countries don't, right? So that means either they have different laws, all of them, which I don't suppose is the case, you know, just because you're a developing country, you don't have different laws, or else they would need to change their laws, sort of remove the human factor, right?
Yes.
But either that's non-beneficial, so that, you know, they might do it in order to get this across what you're suggesting, or else it is beneficial, then other countries would follow suit and do the same, right? So I think we need a characteristic that applies to developing countries that would make this beneficial for them only. And I wouldn't know what that could be.
Yes, I agree with what you say. I do think that if in fact developing countries will start register these inventions, and other countries will see that it's beneficial to them, they might also change their laws in order to allow for such protection. I am not sure that other countries, the developed world countries, are so eager for solution to their problems still as developing world countries do. But I also think on top of that, that this is a very unique point in time in which everything is possible. So I think that if developing world countries were to act fast, so to speak, they might benefit from this gap in time until developed countries will reconsider their laws and change them and see if it's I mean, they might want to look at the market before to see if they're beneficial, and then undertake a very long legislative procedure in order to amend their laws. So this is the gap where they can benefit from.
Okay, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that, certainly. May I come back quickly? Do we have time? Yeah. Okay. So the way I understand it now is what you're saying. What you're saying is, so if we have time difference as an advantage, then maybe, you know, developing countries are quicker because they don't rely on these slow processes or whatever for law making, And so they could have a temporary advantage, and that might turn into a permanent one because they sort of establish themselves as the state that does it or whatever. So I think that's a good idea, because this is one of the very few cases where disadvantage that other countries might have because of their jurisdiction is not actually something that we see generally in the negative. For example, you could say that we'd like to carry out some risky experiments on viruses, and there are not many countries in the world that permit those, right? And we go to these countries. I won't name any countries, but I think it's particularly clear what I'm speaking of, right? So you go there, and those countries have an advantage because they have those loopholes, or they don't care, whatever. And this is obviously bad, and we would condemn that. But in the case you're describing, this could be an advantage that doesn't come with any moral disadvantages, potentially. So I think that's the point, one could make strong there, I suppose. Because maybe that doesn't harm anyone, it only benefits some countries, unlike other research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Z, go ahead.
Very interesting. I definitely enjoy the idea. So yeah, I just want to toss into the conversation that like from the perspective that I do a lot of community work. So from the perspective of like independent vendor, independent artists, the people I work with, I would love for people on the community level to have that kind of tool. It's an empowering thing to be able to have sort of people's like, I'm a big believer that people are a powerhouse of art and wisdom, that kind of stuff, if we know how to hone it, if we know how to harness it right as a society. So I'm very much for like the spirit of this kind of thing. I wonder what you would say about like a particular kind of like pessimism I might have from my perspective also, that the last time, this happened many times, right? But an analog of something that's supposed to be empowering on the community level is social media, self-media, where people are supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to promote your shop, your independent shop, online shop, your art, your publication. I hope everybody sells books here. Social media is supposed to go a long way in helping that, and it did help a lot of people. But we also see that since social media was also a tool to harness political influence, it was hijacked in many, many, many places to do other things. And as a lot of researchers are already saying now about AI, this iteration of something that's supposed to theoretically be empowering on the community, there's no regulating it already because all the military money already moved in. So the space is carved up, and we only have chump change, if that, left. What would you say about that kind of pessimism?
So this kind of pessimism applying to possible harm that registered AI-generated patents may cause?
Yes, or another sort of another slightly different point is just, the space is carved up by, let's say, big labels that have prior constraints based on their putative values.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for the comment. I think I relate to much of what you said, because I think what I found capturing about this whole theory, which I admit has some issues, is that I felt like here for the first time, the developing world countries and their citizens can take their faith, so to speak, in their own hands. So instead of relying on developed countries to create global distributive justice out of the kindness of their heart or guilt that they feel about the past, here actually developing countries can do that themselves using their own national policies. So I relate to what you said about giving power to the people. What you said about using these for worse or for bad causes, or by global multi jurisdictional large corporations, yes, I think it is a concern. And as I said before, I think one of the things that can happen is that prices will rise if these patents are protected only in 3 developing countries around the world. But here again, I think that the power is still with the people. So the power is still with the government. And if we think of governments as acting in the benefit of their public, which we do, then this will supposedly lead the governments to just abolish this kind of protection, to say, okay, we won't protect AI-generated inventions anymore because it just does not benefit our public and no one else does that. So I think this would be what I would say about your question.